Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. And my favorite part is the variety and how easy the meals are to make. How about meals like cheesy chicken, black bean enchiladas with salsa verde, maple gravy smothered pork chops with stewed collard greens and sweet potatoes, spiced cauliflower and pepper with jasmine rice and cilantro yogurt sauce. Choose from a variety of new recipes each week, or let Blue Apron's culinary team surprise you. Recipes are not repeated within the year. You're never going to get bored. You can customize your recipes each week based on your preferences. Blue Apron has several delivery options, so you choose what you need and when it fits your schedule. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe card and pre-portioned ingredients and can be prepared in 40 minutes or less. I've done it, and if I can do it, you can. Very easy. Blue Apron's freshness guarantee promises that every ingredient in your delivery arrives ready to cook, or they'll make it right. Check out this week's menu and get $30 off your first meal with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so do not wait. That's blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. Blue Apron. It's a better way to cook.
Sport Clips Haircuts Help a Hero program funds scholarships for U.S. veterans who are pursuing a college degree or vocational certification. Visit your nearest Sport Clips to learn more and donate now through November 11th.
We are back in Better Than Ever. Mike and Mike rolling along on this Monday, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Sound will include Jeff Saturday in this hour talking football with you. Jessica Mendoza on the baseball. What a series this is turning into. Chris Mortensen today, Ryan Clark today, and a whole lot more. We'll start here with the World Series, work our way through all of the football, college and pro, as the first rankings will come out tomorrow night. We've been busy all day long. And again, 13-12 last night, 5 hours and 17 minutes later. And there's that old, people want offense. They want to see the ball flying out of the ballpark. I sometimes wonder if it's not too much of a good thing.
Right.
But one way or another, this series has been remarkably dramatic.
Well, a series, and again, year. We have a yearly record in home runs. We have a postseason record in home runs. And now we have a World Series record in home runs. So it is where we are right now. And I guess that is a fair question to ask people that are watching. I would imagine baseball purists aren't happy. I'm just guessing. Maybe they don't have a problem with it. I don't know. But as we know, when you get into the postseason, and especially your championship series, you're looking, let's be honest, the sport and the networks are looking to grab casual fans somehow, some way. And while I like the high-scoring games, I like the home runs, but I love a pitching duel. But maybe the casual fan walking by, if they see a score is 1-0 or 2-1, they may go, But if they see a score is 12-9, 8-7, whatever it is, they may say, some runs are being scored. They may want to watch somehow, some way. I don't know. I mean, we'll have numbers to meter this out. We'll have ratings out there. The ratings, we both think, have been good throughout this series. We'll see what they are over the weekend. I have not seen those.
Nor have I. I'll be very curious to see last night as compared to the football game.
Right. The first two were over 10, and we don't know what the next three were. So we'll see that.
We'll get them all this morning.
Yeah, we will get them all. So I'm not sure where people will fall on this. Because that was the first thing I thought of, everybody talking about the ball being different. My first thought was, is anybody going to care? Or are you just saying, let the ball fly where it may?
I like this lead from Andy McCullough of the LA Times. The guy's found, this is his write-up of where we are in baseball. The baseballs are too slick, or maybe they are juiced, or maybe it's both. The strikeouts happen too often, and the home runs never stop falling, and the umpire is always wrong. The sport of baseball is broken in 2017, or it's rejuvenated, or it's somewhere on the spectrum in between. Still perfect for all its imperfections, still timeless for all its radical modernity, still agonizing for what it can do to the lungs and the brain and the spleen. That's really well done.
That really is.
Because I don't know if it's better or worse. I don't know if it's good or it's bad, but I know that you can't stop watching it. I think it has been a sensational World Series so far. And Yasiel Puig, who hit a home run off the end of his bat yesterday, swinging with one hand.
That he licked, by the way.
Said afterwards, don't worry, guys, this series isn't over yet. There's going to be a Game 7.
This is not going to be finished Tuesday. It's going to be Game 7. And I want to say thank you to the fans, support my teammates Tuesday, and this is not going to be finished in Game 6.
Well, I mean, listen, I would be stunned if he said anything else, that there's going to be a Game 7.
Yep.
And and the way this series is going, I hope it is. So we get back to like Game 2, Hill and Verlander, and see what can go on there.
Here's Justin Verlander with the ball in his hands and a chance to win a World Series.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's had a tremendous career.
Yes.
And here's he chose to go to Houston. He had the opportunity to veto anything. He was a guy who you sort of felt was going to retire in one place, and then he makes this decision with years to go on his contract. This is not a guy who went to Houston just for, as a rent-a-player for the rest of this. He made a commitment to the Astros. He wanted to be there. He's a part of this. You saw him being a vocal leader in that club and that dugout in Game 2 when they were behind, and now he gets a chance with the ball in his hands to pitch his team to a championship.
Yeah, he got a no decision in Game 2, and let's see if he can close it out here. Certainly the Dodgers are thinking, get to Game 7. You love a Game 7 because then it's just everything in the kitchen sink, gets thrown out there. Hopefully it won't go past 5 hours and 17 minutes. Unless you're really looking for that. But,
last year we got a World Series Game 7 with a rain delay and extra innings.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's see if anything could possibly top that. As far as what we're seeing right now from with all this offense, part of it, and I think David Ross has just been a terrific addition for us at ESPN with good analysis, was saying a lot of it is the bullpens are so overused, these guys are just completely worn down.
With the starters that are out there are good for a reason, and we want to take them out where they give up one hit, one run. We're so eager to go to that bullpen lately, and now those things are paying off. These guys have nothing, and sheer determination they're out there pitching. Right. And you got to give some credit to both lineups. These guys are grinding at bats. They never say die. Right. All those cliches, but I think the bullpens are getting overused.
Oh, that's it. In the era of the bullpen, your starter, starter can get 4, great. We'll get to our bullpen, where we got our pitchers,
and these guys aren't supposed to pitch like this.
That's an interesting take. I like that.
You can't do it every single day. 3 days in a row. You have to let your starting pitcher is supposed to go, and he's right. With the way the offenses have been going in this series, the notion that one run in the 4th inning is going to decide the game, I think, is also a dated concept. So one way or another, they just keep taking these guys out and throwing other guys in there. So the element of surprise is gone. The hitters have seen all these guys now 2-3 days in a row, and as a consequence, you wind up getting 13-12, and the bullpen ERA in this World Series is over 6.
Boy, I just love and back up there again. Brandon Morrow, Dodgers reliever. This is interesting. Throwing for the 5th time in 6 days. I love the term. His right arm held together by bubble gum and duct tape. Started the 7th inning with the lead. Over the next 6 minutes, Morrow threw 6 pitches. The first was hit for a game-tying home run. The second, a single. The third, a strike looking. The fourth, a go-ahead double. The fifth, a wild pitch. And the sixth, a towering home run that sent 43,000 fans at Minute Maid into a tizzy. I mean, that's a description right there.
That's one of the best bullpens in baseball.
Yep.
All right, all season long. It's the reason they're here. But you don't take your starting pitcher out in 4 innings during the regular season, and so that's something that I think needs to be recalculated. Look, they didn't lose Game 2 because of that, but maybe they did. I mean, you were the one, Mike, who woke up the following morning, and all you talked about was, why are you taking Rich Hill out? Why are you taking Rich Hill out? Well, then the next thing you know, you got Kenley Jansen needs 6 outs for the save instead of 3 or 4.
And how about if you're able to push all that back by letting Hill go a little further?
That's the point. And so maybe now, maybe the series could be over by now for all you know. So we'll see. The series has had everything you could possibly want. There's nothing better than managerial decisions you can question. Yeah. What could be better than that?
So easy, isn't it? Here?
Guys like us. So anyway, we'll get much more on the World Series as our morning continues. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Last year, over 3 million drivers switched to Progressive. Call and click today. Find out if you could save. I want to just finish up on the Ohio State-Penn State game because we only touched on that for a moment. And usually on Mondays, we don't do as much of the college because it's 2 days over.
Right.
And you had the whole NFL Sunday. But this game was so momentous, so remarkable for Ohio State to come all the way back the way they did at home. Their season over. I mean, going into the fourth quarter last night, Ohio State's season was over.
Yes, it was.
And Penn State was in the driver's seat. And all of a sudden, everything changes. How does it change? Well, how about to this point? 538.com now views Alabama as the most likely team to reach the college football playoff, and Ohio State second. They consider them the second most likely team to make the playoff. In order, the top 4 teams, according to them, are Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson. And it makes sense because Ohio State can afford to lose one more game and still come out of their bracket of the Big Ten. Now, the question is, could they afford to lose one more game, be a 2-loss Big Ten champion with this win over Penn State, but a loss to Oklahoma, and still overcome an Oklahoma team or other one-loss teams to get into the playoff? They probably still need to win out.
You start to look at the one-loss teams and who do they lose to? Don't you start to look at bad loss? Ohio State. They lost to Oklahoma, who's sitting there at number 8 in the AP. Notre Dame.
It was a one-sided game, though.
Yeah,
a little bit much more one-sided than the Notre Dame game was.
Notre Dame loses a 1-point game to the number 2 team in the country. Clemson loses to Syracuse, who is not one of the top teams. Oklahoma loses to Iowa State, who seems to be a big boy killer.
Now they've got 2 top 5 wins.
Yeah, they do. How about that?
So how exactly Ohio State is 5 spots ahead of Oklahoma is sort of an interesting thing to look at also.
Iowa State, the first number 2 or 2-loss team that shows up in the ratings in the AP rankings.
I get that Iowa State isn't as good as Penn State, but still, Oklahoma beat Ohio State head-to-head, and right now in the Associated Press, Ohio State is 5 spots ahead of Oklahoma. They each have 1 loss, and that Oklahoma loss suddenly doesn't look so bad. Having said that, those aren't the rankings that matter. The college football playoff rankings, the ones that will come out tomorrow night on ESPN, those are the ones at this point. I mean, even they don't decide what's going to wind up happening at the end, but they give you, I think, will give you a much better indication of where the heads of this particular committee are right now. And I really believe, I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here, one of the big inflection points is where do they put Notre Dame?
Without a doubt.
I think where Notre Dame is right now is important.
I completely agree with that, but why? It's not, we keep talking about Alabama and Georgia. I don't care who's 1 and who's 2 in that. It doesn't matter. If they stay undefeated, they're going to play. Then you're going to get the question, would the loser in a close game still be in? That will be dependent on some other things as well. Notre Dame's they're either going to be in the top 4 or going to be right out, right? If they're not in the top 4, I believe they're going to be 5.
Well, the coaches have them 8th.
Yeah,
that's the point.
But the coaches, that means nothing.
I understand that, but I mean, let's just see. If they're 5th, I agree with you. They're fine. But the Associated Press has them ahead of Clemson.
They would be no lower than 6th. I think if they're not in the top 4, I think they'll be the first one out. I can't. And I think you could have Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Wisconsin could be in the 4. I know a lot of people are talking about obviously, their schedule. The strength of schedule before the games last week.
We had someone in here last week telling us they think that Wisconsin could win the Big Ten, finish the season unbeaten, and still not get in.
But of the top teams, Wisconsin by far has, looking at the top 10 teams, the worst strength of schedule.
Our half of the Big Ten is decidedly down from the other half of the Big Ten. The best win they have is us.
Yeah.
The best win they have is beating Northwestern.
The worst one before Wisconsin was TCU at 55. Wisconsin is 78th. Their strength of schedule. So there's a lot of people.
But they're going to play Michigan and they're going to play Iowa, who's not bad. Yeah. Michigan's not great, but they're certainly they're a higher echelon team than the teams they've played so far. And they would get, at this point, it would appear, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game.
If they're not in the Final Four, if they're not in the first 4, to me the committee is saying, you know what? You haven't played a tough enough schedule. You're going to be outside the top 4. You know what? Beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, and then you'll be
them. I'm not as worried about because I will say this. I'll make a second thing. Just as I said, Notre Dame, if they win out, will get in.
Wisconsin's in if they're undefeated.
An unbeaten Big Ten champ will get in.
They're absolutely going to be in.
If not, there will be a revolt. Yeah. I would be absolutely stunned if that was happening. I completely agree with you there.
Completely agree.
And Miami being where they are, I know a lot of their fans will be upset. They win a lot of these close games, and they're unbeaten, but they're going to play Notre Dame. So if they win that game, I would say fear not, Miami fans, because if you beat Notre Dame, you'll be right where you want to be.
And you're going to get your chance against Clemson in the ACC title game, right?
If it works out that way.
If it works out that way.
Plus, they play Virginia Tech, who is ranked.
Right. I mean, listen, Miami, if you run the table, you're going to be in.
Oh, that's actually the Saturday night primetime game this week is the U against Virginia Tech. That's coming up this Saturday.
And they've been winning some close ones. They've been flirting. If you look at, keep that up there. They beat Florida State, who obviously is 2-5. They beat them by 4. They beat Georgia Tech by 1. They beat Syracuse by 7. They beat North Carolina by 5. And they've been losing in some of those games. They've been flirting. So they're winning, no doubt about it, and they're undefeated, and that's all that matters. But you wonder if they're primed for a stumble at some point. But yeah, you fans, you fear not as well. You go undefeated, through and win the ACC, you're going to be right where you want to be.
And then there's Penn State. Penn State's last 2 losses have come to USC and Ohio State by a combined 4 points. And they are, I think, right now, I hate to say this. I think they're out. I think that loss destroys them because I don't see how they get past Ohio State to get into the Big Ten title game. They need Ohio State to lose twice.
They do.
So look over to the rest of Ohio State's schedule. I just don't see it happening. So this Penn State team, they really may be the second best team in the country, and yet they give up this game. They give up a game in which they have an 18-point lead against Ohio State.
It was right there for them.
Everything is right there. Because if they win that game, they can afford to lose one.
Right.
And they're still going to get in. Now they need Ohio State to lose twice. I don't think it's going to see how in the world it happens for them. I really don't. I'm sick for them. I really am.
Amazing. Last year I
really enjoy watching them play.
They beat Ohio State, and everyone was trying to give a reason to keep them out. Some saying they deserve to get in, and they get left out. And here they have everything right in front of them with that big lead, and they can't hold on to it. So yeah, that's a. But I agree with you. Ohio State's not losing twice, and they're not getting into the. Penn State's not going to get into the Big Ten championship.
That's pretty much what they need. So you want to hear Herbie? You want to hear his take?
Yeah, sure.
Now let's do that, and then we'll get back to the NFL. Here's Herbie on sort of where his head is right now, looking ahead to tomorrow night's first rankings of this committee.
This is going to be probably, of all the years, the 4 years that we've had the first rankings come out, this will be the biggest challenge, I think, that the committee has had. Because you're right. You have Bama, to me, you have Georgia at 2, and then from 3 to about 8 or 9, it just depends on what you're looking at. I tend to look at how teams are playing and who would beat who if you put them subjectively on a field together. But you have to also penalize teams for certain losses. So with that in mind, I would give Notre Dame the nod right now, and I'd move them up to number 3, a team that the last couple weeks have been playing great football against USC. And of course, a big win today against NC State. Ohio State ends up beating the number 2 team in Penn State, and you got to put Ohio State, in my mind, up at the number 4 team. And then after that, there's Clemson, there's Oklahoma, and there's Penn State. All these teams, Miami, all these teams are right there on the cusp of having a chance to get into the top 4. Obviously, a long, long way still to go.
Yeah, again, a team like Miami can control everything because they're undefeated. So you just keep winning. You got some big games, obviously, with Virginia Tech, with Notre Dame, and then possibly if you keep going, an ACC championship game. The positioning for me are for teams like Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma. Where are you going to do with Oklahoma? Oklahoma beat Ohio State. Oklahoma smoked Ohio State.
Yeah, and their Iowa State loss looks a little better now that they beat TCU.
Absolutely looks better now. So where are they? Those are the 3 teams I really wonder about. Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma. Where are they going to be if they're not in the top 4? Now, Herbie thinks Notre Dame will be in the top 4. So it was a nice win. I was more concerned for this game, I'll be honest. The USC game is just a great rivalry game. But that team, we have seen them struggle this year. We have seen the quarterback turn the ball over. We've seen them deal with some injuries. They weren't the team we saw running, at the end of the year that we saw last year. And Notre Dame is a really, really, really good team. And they took a team. I was more worried about the game against North Carolina State, where their quarterback had thrown 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. They rushed the ball for 19 touchdowns. Their defense was 6 against the run. And Josh Adams had over 200 yards. It was a close game, through halftime, and then Notre Dame took charge of that game. Josh Adams should be squarely in the Heisman race, as should J.T. Barrett. Should probably be the lead right now for what he did. But Notre Dame legitimately, that was the game I was certainly worried about. Now you got the U and you got Stanford. They can't overlook Wake Forest, who always has a really strong defense. But that to me is the positioning of where we are tonight, not for the 4 that are in, but the first few that are out, how they have them listed.
Yeah, it's tomorrow night. I know what you meant.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So we'll see what winds up happening. And again, Herbie didn't mention, and that might have just been, that was just a stream of consciousness conversation. He didn't mention Wisconsin, and it'll be very interesting to see where they put them. Because if you just look again at the best win Wisconsin has is against Northwestern. Now, we are playing very well right now. Northwestern is. But that's their best win.
It is.
So I'll be very curious to see where they wind up. Are they going to be in the top 5, 6, 7?
It's a clear message of if they're in the top 4, that's giving them the benefit of the doubt of being a big team and being undefeated. Or if they're not, it's like, okay, you're undefeated. You haven't really done a whole lot, played anybody, but, we're going to put you close enough that you get your shot against Penn or Ohio State, then you'll be in.
That could, if Michigan loses another couple of games, which we would expect them to do, at least we would expect them to lose to Ohio State in addition, then that would be their best win at the end of the season would be against a 4-loss Michigan. That would be Wisconsin's best win at the end of the – well, maybe Northwestern might actually pass Michigan at that point. So that could wind up being Wisconsin's best win going into the Big Ten championship game.
Right.
So if that is the case, again, this is so far ahead of us at this point.
Yeah.
But if that is the case, I mean, could you actually leave them out?
Could you win a title, a Big Ten title, unbeaten?
That would be astonishing, considering the Big Ten is as good as it is.
Then obviously their biggest win would be against a top 4 Ohio State team. If they would have to do that. But with that one major win at the right time, obviously.
Actually, what could kill them is if Ohio State loses again.
Yep.
Ohio State could lose one more game and still wind up representing that half of the Big Ten.
That would hurt.
And then
that would hurt Wisconsin.
They could knock the entire conference out. Ohio State could then beat Wisconsin. And you know what? Penn State could get in. And don't laugh at that notion, because that's what Ohio State did last year.
That's exactly what
Ohio
they
State
did last year.
got in without having won the conference
championship. Isn't it fun to delve into that?
That's the beauty of this thing. But the bottom line of it is, here's what we figured out inconclusively. Anything could still happen. All right, we've said it before. We'll say it again. There's nothing better than talking football on a Monday with Jeff Saturday. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning. How you doing?
We're doing great. And let's start right there with that game. Houston and Seattle, to me, was the game of the day in the NFL. And look, we are at a time now where rookie quarterbacks, they come in having thrown the ball more in college, so they're clearly a little more ready to fling it around than they were back in the day. And I didn't think we'd see anyone do what Dak Prescott did last year for a really long time. And what Deshaun Watson is doing in a slightly different manner, to me, I think is actually more impressive. What are you seeing right now in Deshaun Watson?
No, it absolutely is more impressive. I mean, think of all the distractions that Watson's had to deal with since he became a pro. First of all, he didn't start the first week, comes in at half. You have the hurricane. Now you had the situation with Bob McNair this past week. This is a rookie going into Seattle against the Legion of Boom, all that is. And he plays a fantastic game. Does he make some rookie errors? Absolutely. The first interception, the pick six after he scores a touchdown to Fuller, he follows Hopkins all the way across. Earl Thomas steps in front, gets a pick six. So he has some errors, but how he overcomes those things and battles through, it is a thing of beauty. I mean, the play design is pretty spectacular in watching, but what he does, I mean, let's think about the play where he's going in. They're on the 3-yard line, and Seattle brings pressure off the edge, and they get to him, and he shakes guys off. But not only does he shake guys off, he has the wherewithal to look up, find Lamar Miller in the end zone, put the ball on him. It's plays like that that differentiate a guy like that. Because, listen, it's hard work. Everything is compressed in the red zone anyway. This isn't like you have 30 yards of space for a guy to get wide open. It's everything happens super quickly. You know that the coverage is compressed right on top of a guy. For him to pick that thing up, spin out, and still put the ball on. I mean, it's awesome to watch for a guy who loves offensive football, a guy like him, just to continue to battle and never feel like he's out of a game.
And I guess, so that goes to, now listen, you can just be that good, or how much do you think all the experience in college, especially the big games, 2 national championship games in college, help him transition over to the NFL?
Tremendous amount. And who he's playing in the national championship, right? Think about all the buzz going into those games. Greatest defense in the country, all the things you got to beat Nick Saban, one of the greatest defensive minds in college football, all of those kinds of things that he has to overcome both times. The one he wins, 400 yards. I mean, the guy, again, when the lights turn on the brightest, it's like he can stay calm and just focus on the details of the game. And so I do think that lends a huge amount of credibility, not only to his game, but confidence to the guys that surround him, even in the NFL.
And there has to be, and there's some luck to the process as well, because this is a guy that could be on the Cleveland Browns right now. And I mean, it's a tough question.
Salt and wounds.
Yeah. Yes. And I, unfortunately, it sounds bad the way you say it, but it is
true.
They're
100%.
not a good team, and they haven't done well with quarterbacks. But just how much that comes into play, because a lot of people say, oh, put Carson Wentz or Deshaun Watson on Cleveland. They wouldn't be as good as they are. But you do wonder where they would be in relation to where they are now if they were on the Browns.
No, listen, there's no doubt being surrounded with Hopkins, Fuller. Right. I mean, you have a decent run game in Lamar Miller. You have
a good defense.
Yeah, very good defense. And here's the deal. You lose Merciless and Watt, and that defense has barely skipped a beat. I mean, they're playing fantastic football on that side. They're a well-coached football team on the defensive side. Mike Vrabel has done a great job, spelling Crennel, who's still there. and you can tell it fits the style that we're playing. But to try to compare like where a guy would be, every system is unique. This system happens to fit, but give Bill O'Brien a ton of credit for what he's doing with Watson. I mean, I think that's the part that people just, because Hugh Jackson was supposed to be a quarterback whisperer as well, right? And Kaiser has not done the same thing. I know he doesn't have the same guys around him, but even the play design on the second touchdown to Fuller, you have kind of a fake jet sweep motion. He bends it into the post and then comes back out to the corner. Right. Sherman gets turned around. For him to see that's great awareness for a quarterback. That's not just in the playbook, folks. I'm letting you know, that's I don't know where it was on his progression chart. I can't imagine that's the first read, and he puts that ball on Fuller. It's those kind of plays. My coach Mudd used to say it all the time, play better than I coach you. And there are times in a game that he plays better than he's even coached. So to take away where he's playing and the team he's on, he still does remarkable things no matter what that are special this early in his career.
He's ridiculously good. Has a great quote here from Richard Sherman. Peter King got this on mmqb.com. Sherman said to Watson after the game, "You played the best game any quarterback has ever played against us, and we've played all the legends. I respect how you hung in there and kept battling and battling."
Wow.
If you're putting together a quarterback, I'm not sure what it is this kid doesn't have.
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe the one thing is a tendency every now and again to throw some interceptions, it's one thing for a rookie quarterback to be doing that. He did it in college too, and so maybe that's the one thing you carry over and concern yourself with a little bit. But you said it a minute ago. For him to be, he can extend plays as well as any quarterback in the sport and still be looking to make the play throwing it down the field as opposed to running,
Absolutely.
which not a lot of rookie quarterbacks can do. So, I mean, the sky could not be more the limit at this point for Deshaun Watson.
For Richard Sherman to say that is huge. But to your point, he had almost 70 yards rushing on top of the 400 yards. I mean, and I understand the interception thing. I always go back to this. Look, Peyton Manning threw 26 interceptions his rookie year as well, right? Like, it is a different game. You follow guys. If I'm going to make a mistake, though, the one thing I respect, he's trying to get the ball to Hopkins. If I'm going to throw a ball and it's going to be picked, at least I'm going to give it to my best guy and take my shots with that guy, right? I mean, he's made some spectacular catches. So if you're going to make a mistake with your best and move on.
Here's a great stat. Even the best coaches can't game plan for Deshaun Watson. In 4 games in his career against Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, and Pete Carroll, he has 14 touchdowns, and he's averaged 438 yards per game passing and rushing.
Yep.
So he's sensational. And then, of course, you mentioned the other storyline with Houston, which was the owner of that team, Bob McNair, and his comments in the meeting over the weekend. And I'm fascinated to hear your perspective, not as much specifically on the McNair comments, but on the overall tone of the article, because for so many of us, that article was so eye-opening because we've not been involved in these kinds of conversations. You have in your previous position of leadership within the Players Association. So as you read that story, I'm just going to give you the floor. What were your primary takeaways from it as one who was so experienced in these kind of sit-downs? Well, I shouldn't say these kind because these were unusual circumstances, but in sit-downs between players and the Players Association and some of the owners.
Yeah, I think it was Jeff Schwartz put a comment out saying, from a player's perspective, there's no surprise here, and I would repeat those comments. I mean, the reality is it has always been a contentious relationship, somewhat between team owners and players. And for them to feel like, however they're going to run their organization, it's that way or the highway, that type of mentality. So I don't think there was any surprise from the players' side. I think when it gets to the public, now you have put the onus and you've put players in a very difficult situation because it's kind of like that situation. I heard Ryan Clark, he and I talked about it last night on SportsCenter, and he said, it's kind of like when you're arguing with your wife, right? Like if it's private, it's all good, right? But when everybody finds out about you and your wife and the argument and it becomes public, people start getting embarrassed. They don't know how to respond. Your pride gets hurt. So from a player perspective, his point was this, is that now you're sitting in a situation where the outside world is saying, hey, you should do this in response to that. So not only are you're upset yourself with what's being said, now you're trying to take on what everybody on the outside looking in is telling you how you should respond, what you should say, what I would do. Everybody wants to say, this is what I would do. It's not that easy. And these guys, this is turmoil in that locker room. I give them a ton of credit for how they came out and played and performed, and the united front that they came out with. I mean, this team is locked arms. They went out there and did the absolute best they could do. There was no back down in them, and you have to have a ton of respect for guys who put all of it beside, put it all to the side. Let's go focus on our job at hand. And it shows the professionalism of those players on that team, of how they've handled the situation, how they, when they went out, this is what we're going to do. Then we're done. We're going to go play the game. We'll move on to the next step after that. I thought Hopkins, after the game, handled it like a professional. Every guy, there's not been one player that I would say, man, I'm disappointed in his response to it. I respect the way they have handled this situation. And I don't know Bob McNair from anybody. I have no idea I know he has apologized a few times now. I know he's going to have more meetings with his players, and hopefully they can come to some kind of, find some resolution to where this is, of what they can do and how they can champion this from a team perspective, because that's the only thing that can come from this now, right? Is that it doesn't matter. You can't do anything about it other than fix it and move forward and try to better the situation. And I think that, from a Texans organization standpoint, is what has to happen.
Build something from it, along with what's going on with the league and the players, or what they were trying to accomplish with the meeting. And now this next meeting has been canceled on the heels of this. So I guess that would be the goal, is to get back to that, right? Let's get back to what we were having at the time, seemed to be at least the beginnings of an amicable conversation. Can we get back to that? But as far as a team, I agree with you, to be able to put that aside and play. Right, because that's the main goal there. Because you heard reports of, was the team going to try to win, and I never
taking decals off, doing all kinds of
and I would have never thought they would have done that. And you always want your players, no matter what they do. You even talk about it on the field. If you do something wrong, make sure everybody's doing it wrong together.
That's right.
If you're running the wrong defense, make sure, if the wrong defense has been called out there, just everybody be on that, running that same wrong call.
Right.
So that's the thing. Be together, and they were together. No matter what you think of what they did or not, they were together in what they did.
That's right, exactly. And again, and I tell people all the time, there's no way you can imagine what went on in that locker room. I'm just going to tell you, I've been in a lot of locker rooms for a long time, 14 years in a professional locker room. There is no telling what was said behind closed doors in those meetings. There's a lot of pain that's going on between those guys and their owner, how they feel, betrayal, like all the things that go on from a team perspective. Those dynamics, and are intimate. This is friendships. This is guys doing life together. This is all of those things, and then some. To your point, something has to be addressed coming out of it to better this thing. And I think the Texans as a whole will find a way to do that, and hopefully spearhead the league as a whole back into the right meetings, the right conversations, so that all players and the social injustice they're fighting for actually get spoken to and addressed to the level that they think is fair.
If there was one thing that I made an observation of yesterday, these guys work for the owner, they play for each other.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
So they will always be together. You hear a lot of times in players when they get together, it's, hey, we're playing for one another.
Absolutely.
Let's play for each other. We're the ones, the blood, sweat, and tears on the practice field and the weight room, going through everything. So no matter what happens, we need to stay together.
Mike and Mike, Jeff Saturday's here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Booger McFarland at this time tomorrow will be talking about where everything stands in the college football playoff rankings, which will be tomorrow night on ESPN. Short break, back with more NFL conversation. Jeff Saturday is here. Mike and Mike on a Monday. I'm looking at one of these tweets here along those lines. Travis Hawk tweets, I remember analysts mocking Dabo when he said passing on Watson in the draft would be remembered like teams that passed on Michael Jordan. And while it's too early to compare to start suggesting he's going to be one of the great players of all time, but if you look at the skill set, if you just close your eyes and look at the skill set, he reminds you of Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely.
As much as anyone who's come into the league has, because he's got the athletic tools, he's got the cannon for an arm, and he's got that cool about him that Rodgers has. Rodgers looks like a guy who just doesn't ever get upset about anything. Right. And you pointed it out a minute ago. Watson's throwing interceptions. Next play, he's right back on the field doing it again. Right. He erases it from the memory bank or whatever it is. I'm not going to sit here and say he's the next Aaron Rodgers, because that's the ridiculous thing to say about a guy who's played 6 or 7 games.
Right.
But that I think is the model. That I think is the guy you say, could he become that good?
Yeah, there's no doubt. the trajectory he's on, if he stays on this pace, he would get to that elite quarterback status in a hurry. Mm-hmm. No one is crowning him anything quite yet. It's early. They're 3-4 as a team, so you have no idea how this thing is going to shake out. But what you do know is each week he is coming out and getting a little better. He's finding the finer details and making it happen. Don't take anything away from this kid. He's earned it.
Bear in mind 2 of those losses, and I'm not trying to suggest that any good team should have moral victories, but 2 of those losses were on the road at New England and now on the road at Seattle in shootouts that they had chances to win and put those games away late. And both times O'Brien doesn't go for the jugular, doesn't go for the win in circumstances, and puts his defense back on the field. And he let Brady beat him, whatever that was, 5 weeks ago, and he let Wilson beat him yesterday on a day where his defense was getting shredded. Shredded. And I've seen some criticism of that, and I think that it's at least it is a legitimate conversation to be had. Put the ball in this kid's hands now. Let him win the game if he got a chance to do it late.
Exactly. And you saw yesterday, to your point, the big throw to Richardson in the middle of the field. Has a chance to make to call a timeout, to let his defense reset. They're going in to score. They haven't stopped you all. Let's at least get everybody together. Guys were out of position, standing up when the ball gets. It's kind of that. Find the pulse of your team at that moment. At least help them in that situation, because you understand this as well as anybody. When a defense is gassed the way a defense is like that, from an offensive perspective, you feel like you can do no wrong. You're going to find a way to get points, to put points up, to move the ball. You've done it all day. You feel like you're in a rhythm. So, in my opinion, whatever you can do to help them. To look back, though, I think it's difficult for me, but O'Brien has had situations this season where he could have stepped in and done some things. But listen, it's hard in that moment to always make the right call. I don't think any coach does. I think some get more credit. And then when you find yourself on the losing end of those, you get critiqued much harsher than the times that you may squeak out a win when the players outperform even the way you've coached it.
And he'll be compared to the other rookie quarterbacks, like Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Kaiser. But, Deshaun's on a better team. I mean, it has to come into the equation that he's on a better team. Deshaun Kaiser needs to be left in that starting lineup.
Absolutely.
He didn't play well yesterday. Mitch Trubisky completed under 50% of his passes. So is that last interception. And the first thing I said was learning experience.
That's right.
You know what's going to happen? He's going to stay in the game. John Fox isn't going to bench him. At least I would hope he doesn't. And let him play. Let him learn and go through all of those things.
And back to Watson quickly. The 3 games he's lost as a starter were 36-33 on the road at New England, 41-38 on the road at Seattle, and then 42-34 home against the Chiefs, who at that point hadn't lost a game. Yes. So there are no moral victories, but I right now the trajectory could not be any higher. Okay, quickly, the Buffalo Bills. I love the line that you had about them a moment ago.
I was selling them at noon, and I was buying at 6, man. I mean, these guys, they impressed me. Again, 3 turnovers. Turnovers for touchdowns, running game. Tyrod Taylor's playing extremely good football. It was impressive what they did, and they just keep doing it. Again, I just didn't think they could sustain it. They just keep proving me wrong.
I've been really impressed with that. I'm with you. They just keep proving us wrong because we keep wondering, are they for real? Are they for real? And they just keep proving it time and time. Now I have more questions about the Raiders, who I think we all had making the playoffs, and I know I had winning that division. And I know, it's the game going west to east, but they're the one team that's done really well going west to east. It has been the Raiders. So I have more questions about them.
There's no more excuses west going to east. You're in must-win territory for the Raiders. As good as your team was supposed to be, and they are lacking in areas you thought they were going to excel. Their offensive line hasn't played well. Their defense is getting exposed. Cooper's drop passes. Like, you look around the field, and everybody's taking the share of why they're not winning games. They got to get that thing together in a hurry if they have any shot.
And on that note, in 2 weeks, November 12th, they play New Orleans at home. New Orleans is sitting at 5-2 as well. Their defense is playing
won
much
5
better.
straight.
You know, 0-2 to 5-2. You know the offense is going to produce. The defense is playing better. What a matchup! That'll be in Buffalo as well. But boy, what a nice matchup that.
Formula in New Orleans: Ingram, Kamara running the rock. Involved in the screen game. I know he had two fumbles.
He's got to stop fumbling the ball late.
But listen, that they were going to go to the run to put that game away shows they have the formula. Yep. This is how we have to win.
We got to run here. Jeff Saturday, fantastic.
Thanks,
as always.
Appreciate it. Had a blast.
Much. Our Mondays with Saturday is always fun. Jessica Mendoza in the next hour on the World Series. Morton, Ryan Clark, and more still to come. Stay there.